We're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's May 30th here in Seoul. I'm Shin-yoon, and this is News Generation, where we make the news at Arirang's very own open studio. Every morning, we'll discuss the top issues and latest current affairs affecting people in their 20s and 30s. Joining me in the studio is Kim Xiang.
Good morning, Ian.
Good morning, and Nao Song.
Hi, everyone.
Now, both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. As usual, let's start with our news feed. A news feed which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. Our first story, flights from Guam to South Korea have finally resumed, bringing the first batch of South Korean tourists stranded on the typhoon-battered island back home. 188 Koreans arrived at Incheon International Airport on Monday night. They were the first among over 3,000 who have been stuck in Guam for days after Typhoon Mawar damaged airport runways and cut off power and water supplies. And from this Thursday, students who test positive for COVID-19 will no longer have to be under mandatory quarantine for 7 days. Instead, they will be advised to stay home for 5 days, and during those days, they won't be marked as absent, and this comes as health authorities have downgraded the threat of COVID-19. A few days back, a man in his 30s was arrested by police in Korea for opening the emergency door of a plane minutes before landing. He opened a door in midair, to be more exact, around 250 meters above from the ground. And police said the man claimed he felt like he was suffocating and wasn't in the right state of mind as he recently lost his job. Fortunately, none of the 194 passengers died, though many were taken to the hospital after fainting or having breathing problems. Now, we're going to take a closer look at the third hashtag. Over the weekend, we saw many clips vividly depicting how chaotic and scary this moment was for those on board. One photo in particular blew up on the internet. It's a photo of a female flight attendant blocking the exit that has been forced open. She seems to be trying her best to stop any additional harm from being made. While many applauded the flight attendant's courage, another discussion sparked online. It was in regards to her uniform. Many took note of how this flight attendant was dressed in a tight-fitting uniform with heels. They said not only does it look uncomfortable, but extremely dangerous. Now, I would like to expand our newsfeed here into the studio. This isn't the first time people have been calling for changes in female flight attendants' uniforms. Now, what are your thoughts on this now?
Yeah, you know, female flight attendant uniforms have been kind of this icon for the past few decades, and everybody wants to be a flight attendant because of these pretty uniforms. But if you think about it, their purpose is to keep us safe during flights, especially in emergencies like this. And not just in Korea, but if you look all over the world, there's a lot of tight-fitting uniforms. And so perhaps it's time that we start making changes so that the movements would be a little easier in terms of in times of emergencies like this.
For sure. What are your thoughts on this story?
Well, I mean, I do agree to a certain extent. I mean, it'll be more, for me, I think it'll be more about the sexualization of the image and the glamour and all that. But I think, to be honest, flight attendants themselves aren't, you know, the service, they're more for the service rather than saving the plane when there's emergencies happening. And I mean, it goes for the male attendees as well, the male flight attendants, also the pilot. They'd have to dress in suit and tie with the cap on, hugely uncomfortable. If they could go in shorts and t-shirts, they could really relax in operating the flight and everything. So I think it's more about the issue of the passenger for this case. Of course, there are some limitations coming from the uniform itself, but I think first of all, we should tackle the problem and maybe check for the mental health of the passenger who's being seated by the emergency exit.
So you don't think there's a causality with the incident itself and the uniforms, right?
Definitely not. Yeah, there's zero causality.
But I do think that this incident did shed light onto the fact that these uniforms could be very dangerous and risk the lives of flight attendants, because one of their main responsibilities is to take care of us and, you know, make sure that everyone is safe on board. And that was our news feed for this Tuesday. Moving on to today's discussion topic. We're going to be talking about a very familiar issue, but one that's not too widely discussed on the news. It's online dating. Take a look at the screen to find out more. Would you say our generation is romantic? Rather than traditional forms of dating, a bigger chunk of us are looking for a significant other online with a swipe of a finger. Dating apps have evolved since the advent of the internet. With more people spending time online, they could find their potential partner without having to change out of their pajamas or leave the house. We've also seen apps diversify, specifically catered to each person's tastes and end goal, whether that be same-sex relationships or finding people who have the same religion or are seriously thinking of marriage. Today, NewsGen looks at 3 questions. 1. How popular is online dating for millennials and Gen Z? 2. How has actively using online dating apps affected young people in the offline, face-to-face dating world? 3. How do most people feel about online dating apps? With a swipe of a finger, you can find your significant other. That seems to be what most millennials and Gen Z think these days. And before we talk specifically about online dating, let's look at the bigger picture. How young people in Korea date these days. There seems to be a lot of acronyms that we use to refer to the latest dating styles and trends. For instance, there's 자만추 and 임만추, which are all acronyms taking the first letters of 3 Korean words. So now, why don't you explain to us what 자만추 and 임만추 is?
So 자만추, which is short for 자연스러운 만남 추구, it's actually going for organic meetings and meeting people in a natural way, in a comfortable setting like that. Or 인만추, which is short for 인위적인 만남 추구, which is kind of funnily artificially meeting people. You're making it so that you're kind
Creating
of
a
forcing,
situation,
not forcing, but yes, kind of forcing because it's artificially meeting people.
Right. You're trying hard to make your own fate. I think
Yeah.
that's the better way to say it.
That's
And
right.
Xiang, why do you think more people are choosing this 인만추 option? And I hear that most of them are doing so online, right?
Yeah, I mean, so 자만 should be a bit difficult. It'll be more, through destiny.
Yeah.
You go to a park, you accidentally fall over, and there's a guy
oops.
trying to pick you up,
Yeah.
and you guys fall, stuff like that, which
Yeah.
might be a bit more difficult
Right.
Yeah.
than 인만추, as we say. So, I mean, even me, I thought 인만추 was internet 만남추구, so I
Yeah.
thought it was more based on internet. I think that's common nowadays. For example, during the COVID-19 time, an April 2022 survey of millennial dating app users in the US suggested that 31% of the users started using online dating apps more than prior to the pandemic.
Makes sense.
So it's easy, there's a faster turnaround, you can always go find someone quickly whilst you're on the move.
Right.
Even if you're getting off a job, on your commute, you could talk to the person through the application and really break the ice before you actually meet them. I think that really saves a lot of time for the millennials and Gen Zs who's working hard, who's a lot of time spent living in the city, commuting and things like that. So, as I said, Immanchu is not just online dating, but any form of sort of artificially created situation, even when your friend introduces you to someone, and that could also break the awkward first meet as well.
For sure. And I think 인만추, no doubtedly, in means artificial, but now I think a lot of people are thinking of it as the internet.
만남.
So we're going to be focusing on online dating now. And what do you think are the pros and cons behind this most prevailing dating method?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think we should talk about the issue, the recent Netflix show, Tinder Swindler, with Simon Leviev, I think, who scammed $10 million. Out of quite a few women.
Yep.
So I think things like that would be things to look out for. But for pros and cons selected by the Korean public on the main component of Immanchu, online dating, let's have a look at the screen.
All right.
First, the benefits. Number one advantage chosen by Koreans was that they know what they are interested, know that they are interested in dating at 40%. The second benefit was clear purpose. Whether it is for long-term dating or for short hookups, you know what the purpose or the intention is. The last majority was that it's fun to meet new people at around 13%.
Okay.
Now let's move on to what the disadvantages look like. At first place of the disadvantages was the awkwardness on the first meetup, followed by hard to get a second date when the first date doesn't go very smoothly. That could be expected. Lastly, it was that it takes time to get to know someone, as you don't often share a common background.
It isn't surprising because you're meeting them for the first time after, you
it might not work out. You might need a couple of dates. You might need to
Exactly.
be in the same situation or environment to have something to chat about.
For sure.
And I think Xiong was mentioning how it's a convenient thing and it's efficient. And you know us millennials and Gen Z, we really love our time efficient ways to do things. But when looking for a partner, you know what you're looking for.
Right.
Like he was saying, the intentions of the relationship itself, but depending on the app, there's actually filters that you can fill out, I don't know, different types of educational background or how you look, what kind of race, even religions. So you can really easily go through people. But I think that's also the downside of it, is that because it's so convenient, you kind of make people into something disposable, and it's not as romantic as like Xiong was saying, running into someone and saying, oops, I'm sorry, and then there's not that kind of romance. It's a different kind of romance, but it's become a form of almost entertainment because of how easy access it is.
Exactly. Love at first sight no longer seems to be the case. It's like you finding your own way.
It could be love at first sight on your phone.
On your phone with all those
it.
filters. They don't know.
But they don't know what kind of Photoshop that's been done.
That's true. That's also
you
very
don't know.
true. And based on our discussion so far, I guess our generation thinks it's really up to us to make our own fate and find our destined lover. But wasn't it a bit different for our parents or older generations, especially since they didn't have as easy access to a speedy internet or all those different filters that you've mentioned, right?
I mean, every generation has its creative ways to figure out how to meet people. Let's talk about my grandparents. My grandfather was a conductor in a choir, and he gave my grandma a solo in a song that he wrote.
Smooth gentleman, right
yeah,
there.
like, here, you sound like you'd be good at this song. My parents met at a conference. My father-in-law was set up by his mother-in-law. So my mother-in-law's mom on the phone from America to Korea. So people figure it out. People figure out some way to meet people. But I think even being introduced to someone, it's an old concept that's just been evolving, and the younger generations finding online platforms to do it on.
Right, for sure. And Xiao, what do you think? How different is our dating culture, the one that's really fixated online, different to older generations?
Yes, I mean, I think we could also talk about the basis, the background of where the online dating comes from. So, I mean, pen paling was the common method to get to know someone without actually meeting them in person back in the days.
Right.
But I would say it was more for a friendship building, although there were some attempts for romantic developments. Let's say the first instance of online dating was in 1965.
Wow.
Where it's called Operation Match. By Jeff Todd and Von Morrill at Harvard University, using a questionnaire to the students to actually build up the database of how people match to each other. And in 1986, there was a matchmaker, online bulletin sort of type of electronic services, as well as 1994 and 1995. We started seeing actual online platforms for online dating, things like Match.com, Yid.com, the very first series of online dating websites. So it was interesting to see that until the 80s, most of these online dating platforms began as a social experiment or a sociology study by universities such as MIT and Harvard.
And not to mention very prestigious universities as well, for sure. Now we're going to include a millennial from the States who's actually used a dating app to meet the love of her life. We'll be back with her live interview right after this. Love has no boundaries, and since we're seeing love spread through digital means, we're going to be hearing from a global millennial who's closely related to our discussion topic today. It's Linda Tapia, who met the love of her life 2 years ago online. Welcome, Linda.
Hello, Linda.
Hi.
Hello, good morning.
All right, Linda, tell us when and how you started to use online dating apps and how you met your current boyfriend.
So I started using online dating apps in spring 2021.
Right.
So I started using these online dating apps because COVID has just happened, and I wasn't getting out as much because we're just trying to get back into society.
Right.
Restaurants were just starting to open up. Nobody was actually going out to bars or clubs at this time.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're going to be meeting people
2021
in
was still really
person.
bad, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, my college was all online. I wasn't going to meet anybody.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't taking it too seriously at first. I was just trying to see who was out there.
Right.
I wasn't expecting to meet the love of my life.
Aw.
If anything, I thought maybe I could actually make a new friend through these apps. So the app I chose was called Bumble. And
Right.
what interested
I've
me
heard of
about
that one.
this is that after you match with someone based on their profile, the woman has to make the first move to start a conversation. And
So you had to
so,
make the effort.
yeah. So if I really like someone, I had to come up with some
Pickup
sort of
line.
way to start a conversation.
Oh.
Do you
And so
remember what you
every-
said as your pickup line?
Yeah, what was your first line? Your opening?
Well, with my partner, he had a picture of him and his cat in there,
Oh.
and I love cats. My cat is my baby. She's my firstborn,
Oh.
and so I just saw how much that his cat loved to cuddle him. So my pickup line for that was like, "That cat seriously loves you."
Oh.
And so he just went on and on about his cat. Okay, people love to talk about the pet.
Yes.
Very smooth. I mean, so Linda, as a person who has actually tried a dating app, what do you think are the pros and cons behind using online dating apps?
Okay, so one of the pros might seem kind of mean, but a pro to me is that you get to be very picky.
That's true.
Yeah.
But to me, picky means just keeping your standards high. It means that you get to really choose someone that meets all your standards, whether it be like, I want to travel for the next 5 years of my life. Is that something you're interested in? Like, where do you see yourself in your career from 5 years from now? Like, do you want a big family, or do you just want to be on your own? And for me, I wanted to travel. I want to have my own career. I want to have a big family, and my partner, and all of that. So whatever your standards may be, just be picky about it when on these dating apps, because there's so many people out there, especially here right now. There's so many people out there. So there's bound to be someone that meets all your
Yeah, you
standards.
can
And
see
then
where
once
they're
they
coming from.
and once they meet your standards, they might exceed them way beyond what you thought might have been possible.
Give us one con then. What might be bad about using a dating app?
Oh, the con. It's the safety issue. There's
For sure.
as much as there is good people out there, there's bad people too.
Right.
So,
And I think leading into that, are there any things that we should look out for, because of safety issues? What should we be aware of when meeting people online?
Try to be a bit of a stalker. Once you get their name, once you get their picture, if they give you your last name, I'm like, yes, I got their last name. That means I could look them up and maybe do a background check, find their social media, and find out if they really say who they say they are.
Right.
And then share that information with a friend you trust.
Right.
So that they
course.
know who you're with on a certain date, and then also share your location with them so they know where you are at all times.
Exactly. And
Yep,
meet up
yep.
at an open space where a lot of people
Public
are at.
space.
Yes,
Public and
public
open
space.
space.
Yep.
Yes, for
Always
sure.
an open space. Don't get near their car.
Yes, very good tips. All right, thank you so much, Linda. It was a pleasure to hear your story today.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
All right, and before we continue our talks, we're also going to hear what our global viewers had to say on today's topic. We asked their thoughts on dating apps, so take a look at the screen to find out what they had to say. Leon Teo said people in the younger gen have busy schedules, so online dating makes it easier to interact with your partner. Garugo Saden said, I do not use dating apps. It's probably safer to meet someone at a convention than through online dating. Tira Spell says, I do use dating apps. Convenience is a big factor as people are busy. Also, I think the pandemic increased online dating as in-person meetings were virtually impossible. Now, I see a lot of our global viewers have a lot to say about our discussion topic for sure.
Yeah.
I do think, as Linda mentioned, one of the pros of online dating is that you can meet a better compatible partner, but the cons are for sure safety issues. That's why before we end off, I would like to ask you guys, what are some things to keep in mind when looking for a partner online?
You know, I think whether it be online or offline or in a natural setting or I guess in an artificial setting, you really have to look at their character and,
sure.
you know, like Linda was saying, check them out, be a little bit, not entirely, but just really stalk them a little bit and
Yeah,
find
pat
out
them
if they're
down a
really
bit.
genuine and, you know, if they have some red flags, run because there will be other people for you. But if you're having fun, as Linda mentioned, and as people are concerned about, please be safe, let people know where you're at, and, you know, yeah, have backups, have people who can help you out
Have
whenever.
backups. And think before you do anything that you'll regret
Right.
later on.
Right.
For sure. Any tips of your own?
Well, I can't say they're tips, but I think, first of all, I think for online dating, a lot of the online space evolves around sort of fabricated images.
Right.
So some people might not be as talkative in real life. They might not be as, you know, smooth or, you know, say what they are. But they might be able to convey those images on an online space.
Right.
So, I mean, even like images, even like your selfies that you upload
Yeah.
might be hugely photoshopped. We
Yeah.
call it catfishing,
Yeah.
I guess. And it's, you know, it happens a lot of the times. Even when you have one of these immature artificial setup meetings, your friend might have shown you a really good picture, really, you know, sort of good lighting or you know, good filter
Yeah,
or
that
something.
That perfect angle.
You might see them as, oh wow, he's so handsome, you know, he's so
Right.
beautiful, and meet them in real life and be really upset.
Or it could be a really bad picture of them.
Yeah,
And
the
so
other
just
way
have like
around.
take it
Yeah.
with a grain of salt, give them the benefit of the doubt, and then go check them out, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So I think what I'm trying to say is don't really believe everything
Yeah.
on online spaces. As
Yeah.
now you mentioned before when we're running a quick rehearsal about some of the scam cases
Right.
where they catfish you and they'll use to blackmail you to get money out of you.
Yeah, don't do anything
yeah.
that you don't want to leave on the internet
exactly,
space.
sexual
Everything is
sort of
recorded,
contents and
yes.
stuff like that. And I think that makes good sense. You've got to be really aware. I think that's why some of our viewers also prefer the conventional method of meeting someone in real life.
Yeah.
Have you ever used a dating app?
I have never, but based on today's discussion topic, I am quite curious because I never knew there were so many filters out there.
Oh, it depends on the app. So
Filters,
obviously
that's true.
I've used some of them before.
Really?
I've checked out different ones. Some of my friends actually used it and like, you know, like Linda found the love of their lives. But depending on the app, you know, it has things like the woman has to approach the man first,
Yeah.
or you can have the filter, or they're just, you know, the classical ones where you just swipe through and look at their faces and that's like the biggest thing. So it really depends on the app, but I love the ones that have filters because like Linda was saying, you can be picky. Yeah.
You love them? I thought you're married.
I am married and I actually didn't meet my husband through an app.
If
but I
anyone
recommend-
finds Niall on one of these dating apps, please be aware and give us a call so we can make amends.
All right, and we're going to be wrapping up right here. We've been talking about online dating app, a very growing, prevalent dating trend here in Korea. And we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m., bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Kim Xiang
My pleasure, yeah.
and Niall Song.
No problem.
All right, and thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are
New generation.